date is set to hear an appeal in the 2020 election interference case. Oral arguments are set to begin October 4th in the Court of Appeals. Judges will decide if Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis should be disqualified. The appeal stems from a March ruling that allowed Willis to remain on the case if Nathan Wade resigned. Right now, it is still unclear when a ruling would be handed down following the hearing. We did reach out to Willis's office for a comment. We're still waiting to hear back.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We got some good news to talk about and some bad news to talk about for the liberals and the woke, deranged prosecutors that are doing the bidding of the liberals, the Democrats, and the Biden administration to go after President Trump. Okay, we got some bad news. At least one of the trials that people do seem to care about, at least a little bit, it seems like it's definitely not going to happen before the election. I mean, the Jack Smith case is probably not going to happen before the election either, but we'll see. Okay, we'll see about that. It seems likely it's not going to happen. However, we don't necessarily know for certain, but it seems like with this Georgia case, we now know for certain that it's not going to happen, as the state appeals court has tentatively set oral arguments for October, the beginning of October, which is 1 month before the election. So basically what that means is that the state appeals court is going to hear the appeal from President Trump regarding Judge McAfee's decision to allow Fani Willis to stay on the case as long as Nathan Wade was kicked off of the case, okay? And the Trump team has said, no, that's not good enough. Fani Willis has to remove herself. We're going to appeal this. And now his appeal in regards to the hearing has been granted. They say, hey, we're going to listen to your appeal. Unlike what happened in New York where, Trump would try to appeal something. They're like, no, we're not going to listen to it. Okay, we're not going to take time to listen to it. We're going to fast track, make sure you get convicted. Okay, and that's going to be the end of it. Okay, this is, again, why people openly state that, yeah, what happened in New York was definitely a sham because, again, look at the difference. All of these other cases, Trump is actually able to have his arguments heard in regards to making sure that the case is fair before going to trial, if not outright dismissed. But that didn't happen in New York. And again, the sham that was the New York trial was so obvious that even CNN's Eli Honig wrote a scathing article basically talking about how, yeah, this case is kind of bunk, right? This case is garbage, okay? He didn't like it at all, okay? And understandably so. Anybody that's objective or critical thinker, again, knows that case was not fair and overtly political and partisan. And this is why the goons / legal hacks at MSNBC, along with Michael Cohen, are attacking Eli Honig, calling him a liar, saying he's spreading lies for trying to be objective about that case.
There's something very wrong with Eli Honig, to be honest with you. There's something really fundamentally fucked up with this guy. I used to actually say, oh, yeah, he's a friend of mine, to the extent that, we would speak to each other. He's on my podcast like 7-8 times. He's trying to be just like Ari Melber. They're trying to be contrarians. They're trying to show, oh, well, we don't really sort of play this one side. Well, there's only one side to truth. There's only one side to being right. All right. It's not like Donald when he said, well, when he was talking about the Nazis in Charlottesville marching, well, there's good people on both sides. No, there's not. All right. It's the same thing. Melber's an idiot. So is Eli Honig. By the way, how do you know that Eli Honig is an idiot? How do you know that he's wrong? Because Donald Trump was held accountable and guilty on 34 counts. Despite all of Honig said, well, I wouldn't be shocked if it's an acquittal. He goes, I never liked this case at all. They never should have brought it. It's a weak case. And you really aren't going to be able to put the misdemeanor into the federal crime. I've never heard of anything like that. That's because he was a shit lawyer all along.
Yeah, so again, there is kind of a mini civil war happening between the MSNBC legal hacks and the CNN legal hacks in regards to how they cover the clearly and obviously politically motivated persecutions of Trump. But again, we're not going to get the Georgia political persecution to go to trial because the Georgia appeals court basically has said, hey, we're going to hear these arguments in October, which basically guarantees that the trial is not going to happen before the election, which is what they want. And you can imagine that the liberal propagandists, the Democrat Party propagandists, yeah, they're upset and they're mad and they're fuming and coping about this. Take a look.
So, Glenn, we've got a big update in Fulton County, Georgia, where we are still awaiting any mention of a trial date, but it seems like we got a little closer to getting something of an answer here. So can you walk us through what just happened in Georgia?
It's an answer, but it's not a particularly good answer for those of us who are waiting for full accountability to come to Donald Trump, because, Brian, it now looks like there is almost no chance Donald Trump will be forced to go to trial in the RICO prosecution brought against him by DA Fani Willis before the November election. That is because the Court of Appeals down in Georgia just set an oral argument date for Donald Trump to appeal Judge McAfee's decision that DA Willis is not recused from the case. She can continue to head up the prosecution of Donald Trump and all of his criminal associates, his co-conspirators, his co-defendants like Mark Meadows and Rudy Giuliani, Jeffrey Clark, John Eastman, and the rest of them. That argument has now been set for, I believe, the first week in October. And what that means is there's really no hope that Fani Willis would be in a position to begin the RICO trial against Donald Trump before the November election rolls around. That's not particularly good news. It's also not especially surprising news.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? The liberal propaganda saying, hey, there's no hope, right? There's no hope that we're going to get this one, okay? And it looks like, again, you know, with the Jack Smith cases, probably not going to happen either. However, we'll see what the Supreme Court does in regards to Trump's immunity claims. And if Judge Cannon actually allows that classified documents case to proceed forward. But regardless, it is great news for Trump, okay? And it's bad news for the liberals, for Biden, for Democrats, because we know that, again, all they want to do is try to rack up these convictions against Trump. We know that this is politically motivated. Anybody that's a critical thinker that is objective about this knows that to be the case, even some CNN legal analysts. Now, the hope from the Biden administration and the mainstream liberal media was that at least one conviction, this conviction would severely hurt Trump. However, even never Trumpers or people that aren't necessarily a fan of Trump, people like Frank Luntz, are admitting that, hey, this conviction, because again, everybody knows this one is the most politically motivated one. This one hasn't done anything to move the needle. In my opinion, I think it's a positive for Trump because he raised $200 million from this. And yeah, it hasn't really changed anything.
Is it actually just too soon to know what the impact of this verdict really is on the 2024 presidential outcome?
No, it's soon enough to know that it's not going to significantly alter the results at this moment. Then, in fact, the two presidential debates are going to be more important, that the gains that Trump had made among union members, Hispanics, young African-American men are significant and they're holding, that Biden's gains among middle-aged female suburban voters, those are holding. And basically, this feels more like World War I. That is just simply a ground game. It's a war of attrition. And there simply isn't that big dramatic event that most people had expected if Donald Trump was and has been found guilty on all charges. And that's what I need to emphasize. The assumption was 90 days ago that if Donald Trump was found guilty, the bottom would drop out of his support. And that has not happened.
Yeah, and this is why they're desperate. Again, because the one conviction they did get was the one that nobody really cares about in the sense that it's not going to change anybody's opinions. The ones that people do care about that could change people's opinions, again, those are not going to happen before the election, okay? So, again, this is why the Georgia Appeals Court setting this date that they did is a big deal, right? And this is why it's great news for Trump. But, again, everybody knows that this is politicized. Even Dr. Phil, who is coming out here and lashing out against the Biden administration for weaponizing the government, right? Even he can see that it's weaponized. Now, again, Dr. Phil's been pretty based lately. So this is just a continuation of him coming out on the right side of the aisle, so to speak.
This weaponization of our great institutions, the FBI, Justice Department, and individual states' similar institutions, will lead to one of two outcomes. One is more of the same from the other side, tit for tat. That may seem deserved, but it is not the right way forward for America. The other is what I call on you to demand from your politicians today, an end to this craziness in order to save the soul and sanity of our country. The Pope has actually given us the right approach in his new book when he says, we are all brothers and sisters, and there must be no resentment among us. For any war to truly end, forgiveness is necessary. That is true of any war, including our current cultural war. We need our Justice Department to return to the business of meting out justice and not running the political agendas of those currently in power, blindly seeking convictions, warranted or otherwise, and attacking political opponents. That requires a very few important things from each of you, from all of us. Finding your voice, forgiveness, and focus on the way forward. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgiveness, and at the same time requiring better.
Yeah, but see, here's the problem with that, Dr. Phil. I'm all on board with you. In the ideal world, if Republicans choose not to go after Democrats, which, I mean, as of right now, they don't, okay? I mean, they don't treat Democrats the same way that Democrats treat them. But again, that doesn't stop Democrats from continuing to weaponize the system, right? And I personally believe that, unfortunately, we're at a time where it seems as if the only way to stop Democrats is to do it back to them. I'm so serious, okay? But I think he's doing this because he's concerned that if Trump takes office, that Trump can do it back to Democrats, and that's going to essentially start a domino effect of, you know, both parties going after each other, weaponizing the legal system. And I don't want that to be the case. However, I'm not sure how to stop the Democrats from doing this one-sided warfare against their political opponents. Because as of right now, Republicans aren't doing it to Democrats. It's just Democrats doing it. So begging Republicans not to do it to Democrats while Democrats continue to do it, I'm not necessarily sure if that's the answer. I think sometimes the answer is to give the other side a taste of their own medicine so that they realize that, hey, we don't want to go down this path. If we don't do that, then Democrats are going to understand that there are no consequences for this. Okay, especially if they end up winning the election. If Biden ends up winning the election, oh man, trust and believe. Trust and believe. Okay, the door is now wide open for Democrats to do this because it doesn't affect them when it comes to the election. They don't lose anything in regards to public opinion by doing it, and they're just going to continue to do it. Now, it could be enough for Trump to win, right? Trump winning could be enough to stop them because they realize, okay, well, this backfired on us. People realize what this was or what we're doing, and they disapproved of it, and this is why they voted against us, or part of the reason why Trump won. That could possibly be how this plays out, but I just don't know. I just don't think the Democrats are going to ever stop unless they get a taste of their own medicine.
We are not some banana republic, for God's sakes. What are we going to do next? Have a Putin poisoning posse and start finding political opponents foaming at the mouth at home, not so mysteriously dying in their lazy boy recliners? We're better than that. We must be better than that. I don't like what I see happening in our country. This kind of thing is exactly why I launched Merit Street Media and wrote, We've Got Issues. I don't like seeing the weaponization of our justice system, agencies, and powerful government actions that, frankly, just make my skin crawl for all of us and for my grandchildren. And let's be honest, this is so not just about Trump. If you let your hatred for Donald Trump compromise your ability to find true north on your moral compass, shame on you. If you let your disgust for Biden make you blind to the inevitable consequences of pursuing revenge, then God help the children who will inherit the dystopian nightmare we create. We need leaders who will pledge to end this vicious cycle right now and return us to that safe place where our institutions are no longer bastardized and weaponized, but rather simply serve their intended purpose. We have serious problems to solve, and it will take serious people to solve them. Men and women who we hold accountable for doing that which they were selected or hired to do. They need to know we are watching, and their positions are privileges, not legacies. They work for us until they don't.
Again, but the problem is with this, Dr. Phil, is that if Democrats don't lose elections as a result of the weaponization, they're going to continue to do it. And if they don't lose elections, the only way to stop them is to do it back to them. So again, you know, I hear where Dr. Phil is coming from. In my ideal world, I'm right there with Dr. Phil. But you just saw Fannie Pack got reelected in her primary, right? She just won her primary. She's not being punished for having that inappropriate relationship with her boyfriend, funneling taxpayer dollars to him, while also being accused of misusing taxpayer dollars, federal taxpayer dollars, for her own gain, for the benefit of her own family members. Overt corruption in your face. If the voters aren't smart enough in places like Fulton County to punish these people for their corruption, for their weaponization of the system, what other options do we have? Because they don't have an incentive to stop. They don't have it. And this is why, again, I say, look, Biden has to be voted out no matter what. There's so much at stake in this election. And I don't mean it in the same way that Democrats mean it, where they say, oh, Trump is going to end the world, right? That's not the case. We already know that's not the case because Trump didn't do that when he was in office. However, if Trump loses and Biden wins, we know that Democrats have weaponized the system. They will continue to do so. There's no incentive for them not to do so. And also, they're going to throw Trump in jail. They're going to throw him in prison. So, again, I hear Dr. Phil. I just feel like he's very idealistic about this. And I'm just not sure that we're not past the point of no return. But then again, it's not like Republicans really have the cojones to go out to Democrats. So I don't know, right? I don't know.
I'm not into politics. I claim no expertise, nor do I seek any. I don't advocate voting for one candidate over another. I stay in my lane addressing human behavior collectively, culturally, and am focused on how we can have maximum control in our lives and turn this ship of state called America in the right direction and get her back on track so we can be proud. That's my mission, and this is a call to action to save our collective soul and sanity. This is also a call to redemption, healing, and forgiveness that leads to peace among us all, which is the most important gift we can share in our dangerous world. The current administration could and should do the right thing. Dismiss now, even now, post-conviction of a political opponent, all such lawfare, and pledge to return to the normal functioning of a government rightly run. God bless you all, and God bless these United States of America.
Yeah, I don't think Biden's going to do that. I don't think Democrats would allow him to do it. There's some people that have come out and basically urge Democrats to give Trump a pardon. I think Dean Phillip came out and urged Kathy Hochul to pardon Trump for what happened in New York. Don't think it's going to happen, okay? Democrats never, ever take the high road. The high road is for Republicans, right? Republicans always take the high road. Democrats always take the low road. And this is why I call the Democrats criminals and the Republicans cowards, okay? Charlemagne the God says the opposite, but no, actually, Republicans are the cowards. Democrats are the criminals. And because Democrats are criminals, I don't see them actually doing that, okay? Now, again, if it was a Republican would probably do something like that, right? A Republican would probably pardon a Democrat and say, it's okay. We're going to let you go. We're going to come together for unity purposes, and then they win nothing from it. Republicans haven't won anything from taking the high road. Now, they can continue to take the high road. I just don't think it's going to change anything. If the American people don't reward the Republicans for taking the high road, then what's the point? And I'm not saying that in the ideal world, Republicans shouldn't take the high road. They should. In the ideal world, all this should stop, okay? In the ideal world, none of this stuff should be happening. But we don't live in an ideal world anymore. And I really think that the Democrat Party is beyond the point of no return when it comes to the fact that they will do anything to keep and expand their power. And that's the unfortunate reality. And power only really responds to power. Power doesn't respond to weakness. And again, that's just the unfortunate reality. And I think that that's kind of where we're at this point. But we'll see. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.